Sorry. Okay. Am I pronouncing it Avilia? Did I pronounce the name correctly? There you are.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank
It's
you.
Aurelia And for AFP. I had a question on the climate crisis. You just mentioned the G20. Just this week, the United States warned that if there is no phasing out of fossil fuels, it won't be possible to reach the goals of the Paris Agreement. There was no agreement at the G20 on fossil fuels. How concerned are you about this lack of consensus?
It wasn't so much an agreement that we would try to meet the goals of the G20. The United States is going to meet those goals, by the way. We're going to exceed those goals. A lot of other countries are as well. But we want to give those countries that don't have the economic wherewithal and did not cause the problem in the first place. For example, I met with Lula in Brazil. I started off way back in the 80s with a really fine Republican senator named Dick Lugar. We said, here's what we're going to do. If you owe us money, we're going to forgive your debt if you maintain your forest, because they become carbon sinks. They're the things that take carbon out of the air. And so we're talking to what we should be and the countries that cleared their land and put cattle on it and farming and did all the things that increase development. They, in fact, are the main reason why we've gotten as far down the road to disaster here as we have. And so it seems that if we have the economic capacity, those nations, should be getting together and providing help for the nations that don't have the wherewithal to do it. The economic wherewithal and the infrastructure wherewithal. And that's why, for example, I mentioned, in the interest of time, I just mentioned Angola again. Angola has the capacity to generate megawatts of energy through solar energy. They don't have the economic means to do that. Isn't it in the interest of the whole world if they're in fact able to generate significant capacity to absorb, to prevent carbon from being released in the air? I think it is. So what we're trying to do is help those nations, particularly in the global south, where they're not as wealthy, where there are not as many opportunities, to be able to deal with the things that they want to deal with. For example, and I'll end with this, there is more carbon absorbed from the atmosphere on a daily basis, and I'll look to my friend John Kerry, who's forgotten more about this than most people know. Correct me if I get this wrong, John, but I'm quite sure I'm right. And that is that there's more carbon observed from the air into the Amazon region, into the ground, than admitted in the entire United States on the same basis. Now imagine if people go in and do what we did 250 years ago and cut down the forest and start farming in that area. No longer have that great carbon sink. It would be a gigantic problem. So we should be going to areas, whether it's in the Congo or other places, as the G7 nations and as the wealthy G20 nations, though, and providing the kind of infrastructure they need to be able to benefit. And guess what? In addition to helping the environment overall, and the only existential threat humanity faces, even more frightening than a nuclear war, is global warming going above 1.5 degrees in the next 10 years. It'd be real trouble. There's no way back from that. And so there's a lot we can do in the meantime. For example, that pipeline, that railroad we're talking about going across from India throughout the Middle East and across the Mediterranean and all through Europe, that's going to have a hydrogen pipeline there, which is going to significantly reduce the amount of carbon emitted in the air, but it costs a lot of money to put that down. And the world's going to say it's in our interest, collective interest, to do it. So I have not given up at all on the notion that we're going to be able to, how can I say it? I think we can triple the renewable capacity for, as it relates to global warming by the year 2030.